everybody, I'm Tim Goldich, President of the Chicago chapter of NCFM, National Coalition for Men, and author of Loving Men, Respecting Women, The Future of Gender Politics. My next book, Equal Partners, The History of Gender Equality, is due out next year. And this ICMI presentation is entitled Female Power. In my books, I write male power and female power in this manner in order to rebrand them a bit so that we may see them in a new way. Male power is the power we choose to define as power, but male power is understood to stand alone, which means that male power is poorly understood. Why is male power understood to stand alone? Because we do not understand female power at all. I believe that to come to a balanced understanding of gender reality as it has played out all over the world, all through history, we must come to a whole new and much deeper understanding of female power. But there is profound resistance to acknowledging the reality and magnitude of female power. Jumping that hurdle is, I think, going to be the final frontier in gender politics. Ask almost anyone what female power is, and they will almost certainly point to female senators and CEOs. But you see, when we point to women who just happen to wield a high-end form of male power, we demonstrate an almost total lack of comprehension of female power. Human society in general and academia in particular only want to know about the lack of female power, so that we have yet to really even begun to officially grapple with it. What is female power? What is it comprised of? And how does it apply its force of influence in the human system? These are the questions that will occupy us in this video. So, come on. This is going to be fun. I'll offer 3 reasons why it is so important to understand and acknowledge female power. Number 1, it is a vital step in re-understanding woman, not as powerless pawn under patriarchy, but rather as powerful participant and ultimately equal partner in the human system. Number 2, understanding female power leads to respecting woman as equal partner and leads to holding women accountable as equal partner. In understanding that women ply an equal overall force of influence in the human system, we may understand that women are therefore equally responsible for outcomes. Perhaps the truest victimization of women is the withhold of adult accountability, which is infantilizing. It is a withhold of respect. Perhaps a frank understanding of female power is what's needed if women are ever to extricate themselves from a faction of humanity known collectively as innocent women and children. Number 3, so long as female modes of power remain invisible to us, society is left believing that men have the power and women are the powerless victims. Believing that men have the power, women are the victims, is the source of misandry. It's the source of all our gender political woes. You see, it all derives from this initial premise. Men have the power, women are the victims, and therefore, man bad, over-empowered oppressor victimizer, woman good, innocent victim. It's not right that men should be granted the power while women are targeted as the victims. That's wrong, and therefore, females have a special need for and unique entitlement to their own special ism, feminism. And this feminism is needed as a corrective. And therefore, anything that punishes and takes power from man bad, the over-empowered oppressor victimizer, and extra protects and advantages woman good, the innocent victim, furthers the goal of equality. And therefore, femaleism, a special interest group that advocates on behalf of females and females only, can present itself as a movement dedicated to gender equality. But it's not even feminism as much as it is that initial premise that's killing us. The premise that men have the power, women are the victims, is grossly one-sided, which is why it's false, which is why it's poisonous all around. This male power, female victimization paradigm draws empathy toward the feminine and antipathy toward the masculine. So long as female power remains invisible, women will not be held accountable, and men will remain cut off from understanding and compassion. So, that's 3 reasons why it is so important to understand and acknowledge female power. Okay, let's proceed now by taking a close look at the word matriarchy. The near universal assumption is that the opposite of patriarchy is matriarchy. But I submit that matriarchy is the wrong word. In fact, I think the word matriarchy is typical of the many ways in which we deceive ourselves regarding female power. Patriarchy is the male hierarchy. There has never been an equivalent matriarchy because women do not generally form clearly ranked status hierarchies as men do. So there is no motherhood admiralty, no sexual power senate, no moral authority Vatican. Instead, woman tends to work power through the strategies of solidarity. My friend David Shackleton, author of The Hand That Rocks the World, has coined the term matricensis to convey the true nature of this female consensus, the sisterhood. Patriarchy is a valid word when understood in conjunction with the mirror opposite matricensis, but feminism's patriarchy is defined as a standalone power, the power that rules our human world. As feminists defined, this so-called patriarchy never existed. In its place, I'll offer the term patramatricensis, the male-female consensus. It is this patramatricensis, this female-male partnership, that rules the human world, and it always has. Remember back when no one believed that men ever suffered anything, ever? It took many decades' presentation of absolutely unassailable fact before the mere existence of male victimization was grudgingly granted some acknowledgement within feminist academia. But with the dodge, patriarchy victimizes both sexes, the existence of female power remains one of the most denied, rejected, and adamantly misunderstood aspects of gender reality. Shut out from virtually all official understanding. Why? In part because female power so dictates. You see, I told you this was going to be fun. Both sexes make use of both male and female modes of power. I will label a type of power male power if it is primarily wielded by men, and I will label it female power if it is primarily wielded by women. Alright, so let's take a look at what female power is comprised of. So here I'll offer very brief sketches of 14 modes of female power. Number 1, sexual leverage power. Female powers such as sexual power may not be the kind of power feminists choose to define as power, but they are powers men must contend with. Powers toward which men are extremely vulnerable. Powers that have bent the will of many a man. Moreover, equal to male powers, these female powers do much to shape our human world. as seen from a politicized male perspective. This so-called patriarchy is nothing more than men everywhere set in fierce competition in their efforts to perform, achieve, and succeed their way into having what women are empowered to demand of them. Sexual power is a conduit to emotional intimacy power. During sex, a man's carefully constructed walls are breached, and an intimacy men don't get from other men is experienced perhaps for the first time. Once experienced, men often cling as if their very life depended on it. All denial notwithstanding, the woman holding the other end of this emotional lifeline gains great power. Number 2, beauty power. The power to profit, beguile, open doors, and dazzle through appearance alone. That women will go to such lengths to attain it proves its worth. Number 3, presumed innocence / moral authority power. Hashtag believe women. In part, women are presumed innocent because they look innocent. That is, women's more childlike and angelic appearance has a profound effect upon the human psyche, an effect known as the halo effect. This effect, combined with primal associations with motherhood, leads to the power that comes of being more trusted, less suspect in all walks of life, but especially in a court of law. For the same crime, men suffer an average 63% longer prison sentence. This moral high ground is the power a 110-pound woman wields when she gets right up in the face of a 210-pound man and chews him out for being wrong. Number 4, majority vote power. The power to vote in or out of office every elected official in all 50 states. When was the last time you heard a major politician dare to speak of men's issues? Number 5, net worth power. The greater power to demand alimony and child support payments and keep the family home. Women as heads of households have an average net worth 41% higher than their male equivalents. Number 6, spending power. Working longer, more stressful and hazardous hours, men earn more. Yet while men are working, it is women who dominate consumer spending, yielding female primacy in advertising, television, and other media. Quote, that's because advertisers and marketers are constantly seeking women who hold the purse strings in our economy, says author Myrna Blythe. Women make or influence 85% of all spending decisions, representing an enormous $6 trillion worth of annual purchasing power, end quote. For every dollar a woman spends $1.40. Number 7, procreation power. The power of choice. Abortion, adoption, child drop-off centers, sue for child payments. Her choice is his fate. Note that unlike male modes of power that tend to be confined to the male elite, these female powers tend to be distributed not just among the female elite, but among women in general. So it is with motherhood power. The power to take social, emotional, and legal ownership of her children. The power to shape each successive generation. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Historically, the evolution of female parenting has been the evolution of human empathy and emotional intelligence, an evolution equal in importance to the evolution of male technology. Number 8, domestic power. The greater power to rule the roost, set the social calendar, and weave the social fabric. The greater power to choose between full-time arduous work, full-time easy work, part-time work, volunteer work, or full-time parenting. Number 9, the greater power to elicit empathy. This is the power that raises only female concerns to the level of major societal concerns. And there is a related power of verbal emotional acuity. Quote, "At home, men routinely sit through harangues that demonstrate women's greater verbal skills and emotional agility," says author Daphne Patai. The feeling of ineptness of being no match for females at the verbal level is the common inheritance of all but a few exceptional males. End quote. If a man says something in the forest and there's no woman there to hear him, is he still wrong? You see how fun this is? Number 10, the power of protection under chivalry. The power of high degree of protection and exemption from corrupting influences, prison cells, corporal and capital punishment, hard hazardous labor, battlefields, POW camps, and much more. The degree to which women have been free of the obligation to earn money is the degree to which women have been protected from the root of all evil. Number 11, the power to shame. If you were a real man, you'd do, be, and give whatever it is that I want you to do, be, and give. Quote, "One of the most effective ways I have seen women using to gain power over men is by shaming men," says Shar Tosi, founder, president, and owner of Woman Within Incorporated. "Using their tongues to put men down, to shame their sexuality, to shame their success." End quote. The power to shame the would-be hero in a man is a key component in women's overall power to manipulate. Women's power to shame currently has all of maledom in its grip. Number 12, the power of accusation, lawsuit. "He sexually harassed me. He discriminated against me. Feminists such as Susan Brown Miller and Marilyn French have said that not all men need to rape in order to keep all women fearful of rape. It is equally true that not all women need falsely accuse men of rape in order to keep all men and employers fearful of false accusations of rape, domestic violence, sexual harassment, so-called pay gap lawsuits, and so on. Number 13, academia power. 90% of grade school teachers are female. The power of control over curricula, teaching methods, textbook text, and campus political correctness. Teaching feminism, i.e. gender studies, even as a prerequisite to graduation. The power to procure an ever larger majority of academic degrees and achievements with all status and economic consequences. Young, never married women now far outer than their male counterparts. And number 14, the power of feminism itself. Victim power. The power to define the terms. Sexism, male chauvinism, misogyny, patriarchy, pay gap, Me Too, and so on. The power to control gender ideology and media to defame, discredit, and disempower men with highly publicized, officially circulated misandry and misinformation. The power of over 1,000 female-centric organizations of all kinds just here in the U.S. Plus Title IX, affirmative action, quotas, and other glass escalators. The power of ideological dictatorship in the realms of gender conflict and complaint, gender activism and advocacy, gender defining, gender issues, gender studies, gender politics, gender anything. There is feminism on the one hand, and on the other hand there is nothing. The unspoken goal of feminism is to make all other things equal, securing all the above plus equality. The world feminism envisions is a world in which women are often more than, but never less than, which is not equality at all. But then, what would we expect of femalism? I've offered a thumbnail sketch of 14 modes of female power, each worthy of book-length treatment. If we are to form a picture of female power, an analogy is needed. If power is compared with butter, man and woman possess equal amounts. But man's butter is centralized while woman's is spread thinner but wider. As compared with his pat of butter, so obvious, objective. Examining her bread for signs of female power, we find only a thin and seemingly unimpressive layer everywhere we look. But male power is largely confined to the male elite at the tip of the hierarchy, while female power is more evenly distributed among women in general. Male power extends along the respect axis and may be characterized as relatively extrinsic, very unevenly distributed. Male power extends along the respect axis and may be characterized as relatively extrinsic, very unevenly distributed, objective, and overt in nature. Female power extends along the love axis and may be characterized as relatively innate, evenly distributed, subjective, and covert in nature. The power that comes of being more loved equals the power that comes of being more respected. Feminism reframes female power into powerlessness. Beauty equals burden. Motherhood equals sacrifice, etc. Likewise, male power can be all reframed into male obligation. We can look at man bringing home the bacon as having economic power, or we can reframe that into man dedicating himself to earning money others will spend and dying sooner in the process. It's all in how you look at it. So I understand that none of the 14 modes of female power may cause women to feel powerful, but feelings are a matter of human perception, perspective, and choice. Just because men tend to power interpret their reality while women tend to victim interpret theirs doesn't make either of these interpretations true to fact. What if female power is not invisible as much as we simply choose to remain blind to it, even though it is actually plain to see? Consider, less than 100 years ago, feminism had no more than it had always had, a cult following, passionately advocated by a few, but largely rejected by mainstream men and women. Then, suddenly, technology distributed by capitalism radically changed our world. In the world of women, reproductive and domestic technologies, together with the vast expansion of service industries, went a long way toward freeing women up. For the first time in history, the traditional female role could be planned through effective birth control and eased through the use of everything from dry cleaners and daycare to vacuum cleaners and microwave ovens. And suddenly, motherhood and career were no longer such mutually exclusive endeavors. Meanwhile, unions, together with attention given to paid medical coverage, paid vacations, plus workers' compensation, worker safety, and worker morale, went a long way toward making the workaday world of men more genteel and lucrative, cleaner, safer, less arduous, and therefore more suitable and far more appealing to women than it had ever been before. For the first time in history, machine power took the place of muscle power, and women's strength disadvantage was rendered insignificant. Marxism provided the ready-made victim rhetoric that tainted what might have been a more loving gender transition movement, but it was technology, more so than ideology, that freed women from biology as destiny. The world of white middle-class America at the midpoint of the 20th century was a world entirely unlike any that humans had ever experienced before. And it was under all these unprecedented circumstances that women, not just a few, but women in general, began to support the feminist perspective and enter the newly improved world of men en masse. We may cut through the haze and see the true magnitude of female power when we consider how quickly change came the moment conditions were right, female solidarity was achieved, women chose to enter the workplace and begin changing it to her liking. Part-time work, flexible hours, paid maternity leave, extra safety measures, political correctness, on-site childcare, and so on. Women now obtain most of the advanced degrees, comprise the majority of the workplace, and never married women well out-earn their male counterparts. Women powerless? No coup in history ever encountered so little resistance, nor effected a shift so dramatic, rapid, and bloodless. So, we've taken a look at what female power is and what it is comprised of. It's time now to look at how female power applies its force of influence in the human system. It's time now to consider domination versus manipulation. We are conditioned to rail automatically against the sexism and misogyny of using the word manipulative to describe women. So, let us consider this carefully. Is it any more sexist or derogatory to accuse the feminine of being manipulative than it is to accuse the masculine of being domineering? If women really are the victims, then men, the ones with deep power, must be the victimizers. And so an accusation that man dominates is an accusation of man bad, over-empowered, oppressor, victimizer, at fault and to blame for war, criminality, violence, pollution, all things bad. Taken to its full feminist conclusion, the accusation that man dominates is an accusation that condemns everything men are and everything men do. Surely the accusation that woman manipulates could be no worse than that. Imagine a husband and wife making a grand entrance into a social gathering. The wife knows the assembled guests and makes the introductions. Hey everyone, this is my husband. He dominates me. In your imagination, I think you will see as I do, a mortified man stammering. I don't dominate you. When do I dominate you? What do you mean? He asks, red-faced. If to dominate is to impose one's will over another through a show of force, then domination is ethically indefensible. Male domination and female manipulation may be judged equally negative behaviors, make for equally pejorative aspersions, and are about equally representative of reality. The true sexism is found in the unequal protection women receive from criticism, from accountability, protection even from those truths women would rather not hear. When we readily accept the idea that men are domineering but recoil at the characterization of women as manipulative, we are only demonstrating our heightened sensitivity to anything that even hints of criticism of women. criticizing women, well, that's sexism. Criticism of women is male chauvinism. Criticism of women is misogyny. Criticism of women is forbidden. This virtually universal stance is itself highly sexist. And every human reality is subject to reframe. When men are told that they've been the dominant sex, men tend to hear that they've been the stronger, more powerful sex and feel flattered. The male's generally positive reaction to being described as dominant is emblematic of the male's tendency to power interpret his reality. By contrast, we will expect women accused of being manipulative to feel insulted, but what if women were as keen as men are to turn their negatives into positives? Then, should women be told that they've been the manipulative sex, women could choose to forego insult and hear instead that they've been the smarter, cleverer sex and feel flattered. Domination and manipulation are just two modus operandi with which to wield influence. Because they are both effective, both sexes make use of both manipulative and dominant strategies to get what they want. Ordinarily, men and women work these strategies subtly and harmlessly. Woman generally prefers not to work her power to achieve domination, in part to avoid the many and severe costs that, historically, have gone with domination. Becoming corrupted, blamed, incarcerated, assassinated, etc. But also because domination isn't usually woman's most effective modus operandi for wielding power. Men and women generally wield power in different ways because men and women generally possess different kinds of power. In part, men have leaned more heavily on domination because the kinds of power men tend to possess, physical strength, wealth, title, status, prestige, etc., best lend themselves to domination. And women have leaned more heavily on manipulation because the powers women tend to possess, sexual leverage, shaming, moral authority, eliciting empathy, motherhood, etc., best lend themselves to the strategies of manipulation. When woman manipulates, she applies influence, controls her environment and gets what she wants, by pulling strings that can't easily be traced back to her. In so doing, she sacrifices credit in order to avoid blame. Woman is just as ego-invested in beauty, grace, goodness as man is ego-invested in toughness, strength, courage. Thus, blame is anathema to woman. Blame accuses a woman of lacking goodness, which is equivalent to accusing a man of lacking courage. For this reason, woman has been willing to forego credit for the sake of evading the blame she so abhors. Quote, "The history of Western women," says author Patricia Pearson, "is a history of subterranean narratives. Throughout the centuries we have fulfilled our ambitions and expressed our bids for power in a manner concealed from men." Unquote. Woman wields power in a manner concealed from men, in part, because her manipulative strategies work best when applied covertly. If a woman subtly intimates that doing her bidding is apt to be rewarded with sexual favors, a man is apt to do anything she wants him to do. But imagine a woman stating outright, "See these breasts? If you want them, you'll do as I tell you." Not an approach that's apt to work very well, is it? To be maximally effective, the man must get the hint that doing the woman's bidding may be rewarded with sexual favors, but then he must be encouraged to think that doing what the woman wants is his idea. when spoken outright, do as I say and I'll reward you with praise. Bend to my will or I'll withdraw my motherly love, will not be very effective. But, left unsaid, they may bend his will and leave him believing it was his idea. Male power, in contrast, is not diminished by the direct approach. Do what I tell you or I'll put my fist in your face. It is apt to work quite well. Do what I tell you or I'll fire you. I'll bust you down to private. I'll arrest you. The direct approach imposes many costs, but it works for men. The direct approach doesn't work so well for female modes of power. Do what I tell you or I will devastate you with an accusation of cowardice. If a woman is forthright about it, her power is diminished. From the book Lip Service by Kate Fillion. Quote, "Sexuality is a power tool for women," says a woman identified only as Laura. Quote, "I bluffed my way into advertising with no experience and basically got my first job because the boss fancied me. He didn't do or say anything, it was just obvious. The fact that he liked me meant that he went out of his way to help me. He encouraged me and taught me how to do really advanced work. So by the time I got my next job, I was on my way. If a man you work with is attracted to you, he's not abusing you or taking advantage of you. You can use him to get him in your corner professionally." End quote. I think Laura here demonstrates how femininity can be so powerful. It may ply a force of influence without a woman having to do anything. Obviously, power worked without action taken is power that will be difficult to measure and or hold accountable. But that doesn't make such power any less real. As it stands now, woman's power being invisible allows feminists, woman's self-appointed spokespersons, to come to the bargaining table saying, in effect, "You men have everything, we women have nothing, so give us half of what you got, because that would only be fair." In his gender political ignorance, his chivalry, and his blindness to the feminine shadow, man sees no flaw in woman's demand. So his honor and his integrity compel him to pour from his glass half full into woman's glass half empty, because that would only be fair. So, another reason why woman is highly invested in keeping her power invisible is because this highly effective female manipulation, this means by which woman seeks to take more than she gives, can only work so long as female power is kept invisible. Because women are powerful, women are feared, but woman will not garner the authentic respect she so craves until she is willing to come to the bargaining table speaking honest truth. Imagine, woman says to man, "You have power, I have power. I experience victimization, you experience victimization. Let's negotiate." At that point, woman shows up not as a damsel in distress, but rather as a high-integrity adult to be respected and bargained with. Says anthropologist Marian Kranishfeld, "It is evident from a comprehensive reading of any body of literature dealing with power that women are rarely portrayed as having power, except where and to the extent that they hold the types of power that men generally wield. Power appears to be automatically defined as whatever rights men have that women generally do not. And by this definition, women are indeed powerless. When power is viewed from a different perspective, however, it can be seen that women in fact have a great deal of power of a very fundamental and pervasive nature, so pervasive in fact that it is easily overlooked." End quote. Yes, males wield more male power than females do, but females wield more female power, a power that can no longer be overlooked. Women will be better respected when female power is respected. Perhaps the single greatest challenge in gender politics is to bring female power to common consciousness in both men and women. Only when woman's power is officially revealed, studied, taught within academia, and discussed forthrightly throughout the most respected sources of news and information, will woman come to own her power and accept accountability. Male power and female power come out even. Woman is, and has always been, equal partner in the human system. She has equal weaponry, equal efficacy, and she is equally responsible for outcomes. Every society has been male-dominated, and every society has been female-manipulated in equal measure. Rather than demand that men must man up and take full responsibility, let us hope that in the future, gender issues will be viewed and addressed as matters of shared responsibility. I'm Tim Goldich. Thanks for watching.